right, serious question. Does this look ugly? Let me know in the comments below what you think. It's finally here. MPC Live 3 is officially out. It's real. It exists. It's got a ton of features, and we're going to talk about it in this video. First off, if you're looking for a video that just makes a beat with the MPC Live 3 right now, I have a separate video for that. Go watch that instead. This video is going to be me talking about the features and the experience of the MPC Live 3, how it differs from the Live 2, and what it means for the future of MPC technology, because this is a pretty big generational leap. I'd say it's as sizable as when MPC 2 was basically released. So it's on that level. I do have my MPC Live 2 off to my side, and we'll do a little bit of comparisons here and there, but this is definitely going to be more focused on the hardware of the MPC Live 3, the software changes that come with it, and yeah, overall thoughts and opinions and discussion about it. I do need to let you know legally though, that I have been doing some work with Akai. I officially made 4 MPC Academy videos. So I was made aware of the MPC Live 3 quite some time ago, and I did get sent this unit several months ago as well to start working on those videos, and they did pay me for those videos, okay? So I received the unit for free, and I was hired to make 4 videos for them. Under that contract for making those videos, they gave no stipulations whatsoever about what I can and can't say in my own videos. They have no say what goes into this video for that, but you should know that I have been contracted and paid money to make videos for them, which may influence you to click off this video at this point. And if that's the case, no problem, I'll see you later. For those that keep watching, I will give my absolute honest opinion about this box and what I think it means for the future. So let's get to it. Now there is a lot of features in this guy, and I'm not going to be able to cover everything in a super fine-tooth comb of detail. I will be making additional videos about the features and going in depth about how certain things work and all that. But the long and short of it, however you want to say, this is a much more powerful MPC than everything else that's come before it, with a lot more features. And it's not just the proliferation of buttons on the surface, because yes, there is a bunch of buttons to now digest when looking between the Live 2 versus the Live 3. For instance, there's now USB-C. You can now plug this guy directly in the computer with a USB-C cable. This one goes into the MPC Live, and then it automatically shows up as an audio device inside the computer and has 2 ports of MIDI. So you have 32 channels of MIDI in and out, and you also have 24 channels of audio in and out without leaving the operating system as it is right now in standalone mode. This is actually a massive upgrade from previous hardware. I've made several videos and workarounds to this exact problem of how do you get individual tracks outside of the MPC in a live performance format to multi-track to a hybrid mix setup that like I have right here. So you can just plug this directly into your laptop or an iPad or even an iPhone, and you'll be able to send out 24 channels of audio in and out immediately. There's no additional configuration or setup or anything like that. It just works automatically. That also means that you can just plug in your phone directly with a USB-C connection, assuming you have an iPhone 15 or newer. Then you can directly sample off of whatever audio that is playing through your phone, or maybe you have like a synthesizer or a soft synth or something like that. You can start sampling directly and it doesn't require any kind of analog conversion or anything like that. That alone would make me excited about this upgrade, but it barely scratches the surface of what's in this guy. So inputs. There is now combo jack TRS inputs in here, so you can plug in an XLR microphone or a 1/4-inch guitar and that type of thing. But there's also a preamp, and the preamp also has phantom power, just like in the Key 61. I don't know if they're the exact same preamps. I'm assuming they probably just use that technology as well. But it's so nice to have a battery-powered system that is technically portable, and you can plug in a dynamic or condenser mic, and if it needs phantom power, you can supply it directly in this guy to capture some quick recordings. And also bridging the gap one step closer towards this being an all-in-one production unit for music. If you haven't picked up on yet, that's definitely what Akai is moving these MPC units towards. All-in-one production, basically inclusive as much as possible, while still giving you the option to be able to transfer stuff to a computer back and forth. So if you want to mix in Logic or Pro Tools or something like that. So yeah, combo jacks, you can plug in a mic, you have phantom power, all that stuff. If you want to know how you can change that stuff, you go into menu, you go input, which is a new dialog right here. And then you have the option for changing these inputs. So you can say none, combo jack, and then adjust the actual gain. Phono inputs, or the actual mic right here. And again, you can adjust this gain as well. And the mic is pretty cool. I know some people are going to be like, a mic? What do you need a mic for on top of this thing? You'd be surprised at how useful this is. It's basically as good as one of those relatively cheap condenser microphones that you get off of Amazon. So the quality isn't going to be terrible. It's not going to replace your high-end studio mic, obviously. So don't go selling your $5,000 vocal chain that you've invested in. But in a pinch, if you need some field recording, if you need some quick vocal ideas captured, if you just need some acoustic guitar or something because you have an idea, if you need to sing a melody line or maybe a verse just to throw the vibe into the track, you could do that with this mic and move on with the production really fast. So really cool, very convenient. If you have the speakers on this guy on, I believe you can't arm the mic just to prevent any kind of feedback, which is smart, obviously, right? Then you have the phantom power button right there. So if you do have like a condenser mic that requires phantom power, you flip the switch, you even hear it clicking on right there, and then you're good. And then you can plug that in. I haven't done any extensive testing with that yet, so look for a video in the future. Additionally, there's a touch strip off to the side. I really like this feature. It got introduced in the Key 61, and honestly think once you get used to the workflow of the touch strip, it's very convenient. Like for instance, note repeats, like just changing that type of thing alone. That's really cool. You can also hold the touch strip button, go to mod wheel. So now you have a mod wheel, whenever you're playing like a plugin or synth on here. It also ties into the step sequencer as well. So like if you want to use the step sequencer and adjust how much velocity certain things have, you can easily do it with the touch strip. I see a lot of people hating on it online already, and I'm like, it's just a nice feature to have, like expression. I know some people are saying another set of Q links would have been better, but I honestly feel like for performance, this is just more in tune with what you would do with like a strip. And also for like data entry type of stuff. So I like that personally. And again, lots of different features you can use on here. This I'm pretty sure is basically the same as the Key 61. So I don't think there's anything different about this than the Key 61. But if you've already used that, then you know what the touch strip is going to be doing right there. Speaking of all these buttons and a 16-step sequencer, surprise, surprise, right? It's a bit much initially when you're looking at it, I'll admit, but it's very useful. Extremely useful, in fact. It's not just a step sequencer. It obviously is initially, but if I were to say set and then drum sequence, by the way, let's make a new clip and we'll talk about these clips here in a second because they're pretty cool. Whatever pad I have selected right here will show up in the step sequencer right here. So this is 4 to the floor with a, you don't hear the next measure because I got to hit next, and now I'm on the next measure, and it even says editing bar number 2. So I can go like that. Maybe like that just to be a little more crazy. Yeah. So now let's say I go to this step right here. As you can see, I can adjust the velocity down to about maybe 50% of it. And you can see the color changes too. Yeah. And as you'd imagine, it goes deeper. For instance, let's say you want a ratchet on this step right here. If you go step edit like so, now I'm on bar 2. If I go bar 1, bar 2, etc., and I can go to whichever step is in bar 2. So if I go to step 14, I could say ratcheting, and I could also turn down the velocity. Let's do it like 3 times on the ratchets. And yeah, and then maybe step 11, maybe we'll bring the probability down on this and also drop the velocity like so. Just like that. Now we're using a step sequencer for this drum track. If I want to add a snare, go right here, say bar 1, we'll do the typical 2 and 4s. Let's say you want to add some hats. There's another mode that you can enter in here too, which is really cool. You can go into note sequence mode. Before we do that though, I'm going to duplicate this clip. So in this clip region right here, I'm going to hit this button, which duplicates the clip and puts into the next slot over. We'll talk about the clips here in a second. Very powerful stuff and a huge change to the MPC workflow, which you do have access to on the previous MPCs, but you have to pay money for it. Again, we'll get to that in a second. Now, if I go into note sequence mode like so, you're going to see notes are in there at the moment. If I select this, I can now start entering in notes on a 16th note step, essentially. So if I go, okay, so that's that, and I go to the next bar. Now play. I mean, it's a fun way of making beats, right? It's step sequencer, and now it's built into the MPC directly hands-on with the buttons. There was a step sequencer in the past, this guy, and I never liked this thing. I always thought it sucked. Akai has listened, and clearly they thought it needed changing as well, and now we have this step sequencer that is independent from the actual pads. So this combination of the two is actually pretty powerful, and again, I know people were saying it's really ugly and all that, but if you look at a lot of Electron gear, kind of in the same vein. So with the step sequencer, there's a lot more stuff to it, but these buttons clearly do other things as well. So if you look up here, you got drum sequence, note sequence, step edit, note length, all pertaining to the actual notes that you can edit on there. And again, at any point, you can always just double tap this and go in and edit this stuff traditionally like you would on the MPC. outside of the step sequencer existing. Very powerful going back and forth like that. It's not like its own separate mode or anything that's carved off into a separate section. It's integrated inside the MPC system already. You can also adjust last step. So for instance, go here and are we in bar 1? Yeah, so if I go like this, so now it's only doing 7/16 steps. And then back to the full 16, full 2 bars. So that's cool for performance type of stuff. You can also adjust automation in here. So if you want to get automation per note type of things, you can do that inside here. I'm not going to show that off just because the video is already going to be really long as is. Then there's clip launch and row launch, which, as you guessed, relates to the matrix for clip launching, which is definitely Ableton reminiscent in a good way. And also cue all the comments about MPC Force. I don't have an MPC Force. I never used one, so I'm not going to be able to tell you what is or is not MPC Force related in here, but I'm sure a lot of people are going to be like, MPC Force, MPC Force. But yes, if you're wondering what happened to the actual clips in MPC 3, because there were clips in MPC 2, just not as powerful, MPC 3 officially has a clips feature that integrates incredibly well with the system now. Far better, in my opinion, than how it was in the past. So these buttons up here, you can actually set them to clip launch. As you can see, there's, I could launch the arrange, or I can launch the actual clip that I created with the hats, or I can go back to the original kick and snare. And obviously same thing right here. And if you're wondering, can you adjust the quantization of the bar launching? Yes, you can. It's on 1 bar right now, all the way up to 8 bars, all the way down to 16th note. So it could go 16th notes and then be like that. You also might be wondering, can you do a legato mode, like jump in the middle of a clip as it's playing? Yes, you can, and it works both for audio and MIDI, which I think is pretty cool. So in this clip, I went to clip settings, and I'm gonna switch it to legato. Then I'll go to the next clip over here, go settings, switch that to legato. Now, watch this. So we're playing this, and then jumps right in the middle of it. Awesome, right? I love that feature. Because again, it works with audio as well. So you can do some crazy audio bass type of thing and then just keep on jumping in and out of like 4 different clips. And if you have the launch quantization set to something like a 16th note, it'll jump in between those notes. Now you could also keep the global quantization to 1 bar, because if you see what happens, it's going to wait to the end of the bar now every time. So not as fun right there. But you can go back into the settings and say launch quantization. Instead of global, you could say for this, I want it to be 16th notes. And same thing with this one. Clips, settings, 16th note. And then here we go. But everything else will still operate in the 1 bar type of setup. Additionally on here, we have row launch. Row launch is, as you guess, launch these rows right here, just like in Ableton. That you'd launch a whole grid and all that stuff. This example doesn't really work with it because I need more stuff in here, so maybe we'll come back to that. But just so you know, these steps up here are very multifunctional. You can either launch clips or entire rows while keeping the pads separate for performance. So if you want like a lead sound that you're playing with the pads, but also still launching rows, you can do it on here. And if you're wondering, can you go more than like 8 rows or 8 clips and all that stuff? Yes, I don't actually know what the limit is. I think I've gone up to like 20 something. So if you're wondering how do you get beyond those banks, there's these move buttons right here. You can shuttle to however many tracks you have, 100 plus tracks, and also shuttle down to however many clips, which is probably in the hundreds as well. And the previous next buttons also work. As you can see, it shuttles through the row launches. So convenient, very, very convenient. Moving on with the step tour right here. If we hold set and hit track select, you can now officially select your tracks with this guy. Let's make some plugins real fast. And by the way, check out how fast it'll make plugins. If we go new track again and hit advanced and say a plugin, we're gonna make 31 plugins. Do it. It's done. That fast. It made 31 plugins, just like that. If you look at the memory and CPU, memory jumped up to 58%. It is 8 gigs of RAM, I believe. Yeah, 8 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of internal hard drive space. If you do end up picking up a Live 3, you'll notice how much faster this thing is in comparison to older MPCs. It's pretty night and day. The speed, loading, the functionality, and all that stuff, it immediately feels faster. So it's pretty obvious. They do say it's 4 times the power, which is kind of ambiguous, and also kind of like 4 times the original MPC. Kind of wish it was faster. Just saying, like if it was 8 times, you know, because computers kind of exponentially get faster and faster. But anyway, that's a side tangent right there. I was going to show you track selection. And as you can see, I can now shuffle through these tracks like so. In fact, I think I can go like this. Yeah. See, it's only peaking around 20-25% or so, and I'm like triggering notes from all those instruments. Pretty good, not bad at all. And again, I'm like selecting between 16 tracks right here. And also I can shuttle through this, and as you can see, displaying tracks 3 through 18, 4 through 20, 5 through 20, all that stuff, etc., etc. Good stuff, right? Now, next up, we have track arm. So let's say I want to like jump in, record track 10. You could do that, hit record, etc., etc. If you wanted to arm multiple, you'd hold shift and then start going like so, and then you could record everything. Again, this works with audio tracks, MIDI tracks, CV tracks, all that stuff. So let's say you have a Dallas Jam going on, you know, 5 or 6 different synthesizers, and you want to track everything that was coming in. You know, maybe multiple people were playing. Maybe you have a live bassist that can go into input number 1. You could do all that at the same time, multi-track with the MPC Live 3. Next up, you have track mute. And as you'd imagine, you can now mute tracks like this as well. Again, the power in this is that you could be playing your pads right here and then immediately start muting tracks as the song plays. So again, the 16-step sequencer is suddenly much more functional than you probably anticipated initially off of first seeing it. You can also switch it to pad mute. You'd see on this trap kit, all these LEDs light up accordingly to what's on here. So I can mute these guys right here. Now you're not hearing them, etc., etc. You also have next sequence. So if you have a bunch of sequences loaded up your project, you can switch between them like this, as you can see. And then you have Q-Link Pad Grid. This one is a bit of an oddity because it goes pretty deep and requires some relatively deep thought of how you're going to manipulate the track in a real-time setting. Basically, you have automation presets that you can bake into these steps. Now, the way you would access this is you hold Q-Link, you go into Q-Link Edit, and then you go into Pad Grid. You have this section right here where you can select one of these pads, as you can see up here, and then you can learn some changes that happen inside the operating system. So if you wanted to do a filter sweep to a specific value, you could do that every time you hit one of these steps. So if we want to set that up, let's say on this drum kit, let's go to this one. Yeah. And let's go to some effects. Let's get rid of this delay. So I'm gonna delete that. And then I'm just gonna put like a vintage filter, air vintage filter. So that's what that sounds like at the moment. So with this vintage filter, let's say we have the cutoff of like so, and bring up the resonance. It's nice and crunchy and all that. Now let's say we want to just turn it on and off with this button like that. We can easily do that. So what we'll do, we'll hold Q-Link, Q-Link Edit, Pad Grid. I'll say 13 right here. I'm gonna hit Learn. So now it's listening to whatever happens in the operating system. Go back into the Air Vintage filter. I'm gonna tap on. Then it says Learned Trap Kit Default Insert Enable. So now if I tap this, it turned it off. And now anytime I press 13, you'll see this comes on. So just like that. And I can do that with like a bunch of different settings as well. Like I actually don't know if there's a limit to how many things you can attach to it. So one button can do an entire shift to your production, make some crazy performance things. The only thing about this is it's difficult to initially conceptualize and set up. You got to plan it and make something happen. It's not like just throwing a plugin on there and being like, oh, I got some crazy effects. You kind of have to go in and really think about what's going to happen with it. Kind of like the Octatrack. If you want your scenes to actually be interesting with the Octatrack, you got to put some effort into it. But once you do, it's awesome. Lastly, you do have visuals. So the actual sound that's coming out of the outputs can like kind of be reflected on things on here, which is cool for like a performance mode if you want. Like maybe you're playing the beat and seeing the MPC live on a screen. You know, you can do the stuff like that. And lastly, you have an edit page, which just jumps into the edit page of whatever you're looking at on here. So that's a bit of a deep dive into the step sequencer right here. It is much more than a step sequencer. Yes, it's a step sequencer, but it's a lot more powerful inside the MPC ecosystem. Now, on to the pads, the MPCe pads, the 3D expression type of pads. This is arguably one of the biggest changes and the things that are going to set this new generation pretty firmly away from the older generation. Because I'm actually not even sure if this is compatible in any way with the older stuff. It probably is. You probably can load up a 3.6 or higher project and it will probably play the notes properly. It's just you won't be able to actually do them with the pads like this. You have your traditional pads, but now each pad can, if you want, act as 4 separate quadrants and also listens to how much depth is being pushed in that XY grid. So that's where they're calling it 3D. It listens to the XY value and also listens to how much pressure you push into it as well. So for instance, this is a kick. You can just hit on the top and then immediately pitch drop, or you can pitch increase, etc., etc. You can assign samples to each quadrant if you want, or you can basically take the same sample and do different stuff to it, like these flams and all that. Again, this is a very deep thing, and it's going to be in a separate video. And I also did an MPC Academy video on this, so if you want to take a deep dive, check out one of those videos. But I also have my own personal videos on the channel as well, going deeper in this. Definitely what I would consider a game changer with what you can do with this stuff, but it is complicated. So inside of your drum programs, you do have a lot of the usual stuff, but then you have layer play. If you look at this, you can go to crossfade, and crossfade enables these different quadrants. It has these different algorithms for how the layers actually play the samples. But to use these quadrants, you don't even need the crossfade feature. For instance, this kick right here, if we go into effects, which shows you the individual effects for the pad, if you press it again, you have additional effects, but now you have the articulation section. And then you can turn on the MPC feature right here. And now you can see 1, 2, 3, 4. You can make articulations with this now. So if I go to quadrant 4, and we could say note repeats. Like let's say I want quarter notes. And it's doing the stereo back and forth as well. Let's turn the stereo off. No repeats is kind of boring though. Let's go with rolls. Let's say ultra buzz. Let's try some different ones. Pitch dropping as well. There's also an entire mod matrix per pad in here that you can do with this stuff. And also this is where you can do some interesting MPCe, where you press on the pad, certain things happen. For instance, cutoff filters, the filter frequency drops as you push in, or maybe it drops and increases the resonance as you increase the mod wheel. You could do all that inside this matrix. It's extremely powerful and again, deserves its own video. So I'm gonna save it for that. But this alone also would be a pretty significant upgrade to the MPC Live 2 if you were just looking at apples to apples, like what is changing with the hardware. So you have a significant upgrade to the CPU, RAM, hard drive, and the hard drive is an NVMe SSD, so it loads extremely fast. Something that I didn't show, and I'll do real quick, which I think is awesome. If we go to plugin 1, go to sounds, the strings took a while to load up. As you can see, no longer takes a bunch of time. Pianos took a while, right? Let's go atmosphere. At most, there's like a little second, and then it's like, it's in. That alone could be a game changer for people who are doing live performances with the MPC. You don't want to be stuck loading and waiting for instruments to load up and all that. Now it just immediately pops up. Let's say Analog Dreams. This stuff loaded relatively fast before anyways. The main ones are definitely Studio String, Stage Piano, Fabric XL type of things. They would usually have just a bit of a delay of loading, but the piano especially would take a while to load up. Now it's just like immediately. And also loading projects as well. If you had something with a bunch of audio tracks and need to load it up, pops right up. It's like, it's not really a big deal now. So between the pads, step sequencer, internal specs being upgraded, the CPU's faster, more RAM. There's a lot to like about the MPC Live 3. What is the problem with the MPC Live 3? It's more complicated. The whole clips thing changes up the workflow a little bit. And I like the clips workflow, by the way. I think it's a big welcome addition. For instance, one of the big things that you could do now is have a fixed record length off. So fixed length off. Went to the lower octave. As you can see, I didn't care about how long the recording was, and if you look at the sequence is only 2 bars. So this is a fundamental difference of how MPC 2 and MPC 3 software before this was working. Before, you had to consider how long the sequence was, and if you're gonna freeform record something, you had to be like, all right, let's make that sequence really long, or make the actual track really long to account for something that might be 64 or 120 bars, something like that, if you're just gonna improvise over something really long. But you'll notice the trap kit was playing 2 bars, and then I recorded this improvisation, how many bars was it? Probably 12. And also the sequence is only 2 bars on here. So the paradigm shift is now you can kind of be a lot more loose about your loop length region type of stuff. Again, I had videos on how to work around this issue if you want to record audio tracks and keep the ring out of a particular instrument. You know, like if you recorded 4 bars, but you still wanted to have like the last like half measure of something ring out just to have it in the file. You had to jump through hoops to make the recording length longer and all this stuff. Now you don't have to worry about any of that with the clip workflow because you could just be like, fixed recording off. Let me record 24 bars if I want. And then I can be like, I want to go to the clip. I could say loop start is going to be right here. Right here. Let's turn the loop length down. So I put the loop length to 6 bars and I started it on bar 5. Because again, I was just improvising. It's like, I'm not sure what I want. See what happens. And now I have this. Let's actually name this piano real quick. Piano. Thank you very much. And now we can go plug in 2. Let's just throw in the mini D. Let's get a bass, mini thump. Same thing. I don't know how many bars I want to record. Let's just find out. Four bars. Kind of making a mess, but it's fun. So the freeform kind of recording aspect of the clips is a pretty significant workflow change. This is available though for older MPCs if you pay money. I believe the launch price is $100 and the post-launch price is going to be $199, $200. So if you do plan on upgrading and keeping the features kind of on parity with whatever's happening with the MPC, you will have to pay some money at this point for some of these new features, which there's a bunch to talk about I haven't even gone into. I guess we could do a quick overview real fast. You have some pro plugins. We now officially have a Reverb, Pro Reverb, which sounds awesome. This has been a huge thing on my list. Like, I want a nice, tasty reverb in this machine. It's officially here, and you can get it in the older machines. It's just, it's processor intensive, so you probably can only have a few of these, maybe 2, 3. I'm not sure. I'll have to do some testing on there to be able to try it out. So if we listen to this, let's crank the room size. CPU, hover around 13–14%. Oops. With the bass and the drums, still hovering around 14–15, spiking at 19 every now and then. Air Reverb Pro, very cool. There is also Air Visual EQ, officially. It's probably processor intensive as well. So on the older MPCs, you know, might struggle a bit with the whole visualizer and all that stuff, but it's finally here. Thank goodness. Under Harmonic, kind of a weird place to put it, but under Harmonic is Air Utility as well. This is a nice convenience tool. Again, you do have to pay for this. It's a little weird that you have to pay for this one. I feel like this should be free, is what it is. You can swap the inputs left and right. You can also do some conversion stuff right here, which is convenient. You can go mono, mid-side, adjust the width. You can also bass mono and adjust the frequency on here, which is helpful for getting your bass tight and not worrying about smearing it on the low end too much. There's some gain offset, DC offset, panning type of thing. So basically a utility that you'd expect in a DAW is now inside of here. Again, a little strange that it's paid. I feel like this should have been included with things because it's your typical utility type of thing. There is a lot to talk about, man. There's a whole new time stretching algorithm. It's equivalent to a high-end time stretching capability now. So if you ever noticed that the Pro 10 had poor time stretching, it's much better now. Way more usable, and you could do it on the hardware as well. It is included with the Pro Pack that you have to pay for, so you can get access to this better time stretching algorithm on the older MPCs, but again, it's more processor intensive, so I don't know how many tracks you can truly time stretch before the older processor chokes, versus the new processor is going to be able to handle it without a problem, and it defaults to that for everything. So if you do happen to make an audio track, like let's say the trap kit, we go pencil, bounce to audio track. By the way, you can do this as well. You can take each clip and just say like, bounce to an audio track. Very convenient. So track 34, right here, you can see, this is our drum sample here. If we solo this, so it's in default super, as you can see. Super is the new algorithm. We can slow this down. Sounds pretty good, right? I mean, that's 40 BPM delta right there. Go even lower. (16, 18% on the CPU. I mean, that sounds pretty good, right? Here, for instance, on the algorithm, let's switch to what it was before. It was Pro 10. Noticeably worse. Garbly, you know. It's also pretty extreme too. This is like half speed, essentially. Let's go back to super. I think it waits for the entire measure. Major change right there. Let's go back to 128 so we remember what it sounds like. I mean, wow, right? Now let's crank this guy all the way up. Let's go Pro 10. This is very inaccurate, right? Back to super. Much more accurate. There's also pro quality stem separation. I'm not going to show it on here because I don't really use stem separation that often. It is officially pro quality from what it was before, and that is included in the pro upgrade. Also, if you do use stem separation all the time and you're looking forward to a pro version inside the older MPCs, unfortunately, it is not possible. Apparently, the older CPU chips are not capable of running that algorithm, so it's just out of the question. So if you do want like the best possible stem separation that's available, you do have to start considering the future of MPCs, whether it's the Live 3 or whatever else comes out in the future that has the upgraded hardware. So something to consider if you're into stem separation. Man, there's also a huge new library of expansion kits to work with here that all sound great. Everything that I've tried so far, I've just been like, yeah, this is tasty, vibey stuff. There's also a whole MPCe kit type of construction thing to kind of get you going. This has a lot of stuff. This feels like a significant upgrade. I haven't really talked about like the direct comparison of these two just yet. And honestly, I'm going to have to save some of this for another video. But yes, this is significantly more complicated. It might look more ugly for some people, but No one is going to ask you if your device looked pretty when you're making your next hit. Cool track, but you made it on an ugly machine, so I'm not interested. No one's going to say that, right? This is Akai going deep into the functionality side versus the form, while still looking decent in my opinion. Like in person, it's got more of like an Electron command center type of vibe to it, but it also makes sense once you start using it. And it's condensing the DAW experience down into a device that's going to be as functional as possible right now for an all-in-one mobile type of solution. Because again, it's got a battery inside, so you can just unplug everything, pick it up, and get going with it. You can throw it in a backpack. If your backpack is big, this thing's pretty big. It's also pretty heavy too. So it's mobile, yes, but you're going to feel it if you're carrying it on your back. In fact, is it heavier? I think it's heavier than this guy. They're pretty close, honestly. It's also pretty close to being the same size. The Live 2 definitely has more of a minimalistic type of look to it. And the workflow kind of niceties are going to be missing once you upgrade to like clip features and all that. Like for instance, on here, there's an arrange button and you double tap it to get into the matrix window. That is not on here. I don't think there's any kind of way to do that. Yeah, you go arrange, but then I think you have to go menu and then clip matrix if you want to get into the matrix on here. Again, I might do a more direct comparison type of video here in the future. There's just a lot to cover with this, so I apologize if I've rambled through half of this video.
I also completely forgot to mention the CV tools, which is incredible, but is also part of the Pro Pack, so you can actually access this in other MPCs. And there's even a global LFO envelope follower that is in the Q-Links page, which again, is a lot to go through, so I'm not even going to show it in this video, but you should know those exist and are also accessible in previous MPCs with the paid Pro Pack.
I'm curious, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Again, I asked if you think it's ugly. You might still think it's ugly after this video. After I've used it for about 2 months at this point, I actually really like the look of it. It feels like a studio tool. Like if you look at all the audio gear that I have, some of it's pretty, but most of it's more functional looking than pretty. I think this falls in that same category of it's a device to produce music. Most of everything you need is right in front of you with your hands, and that's really powerful. Very cool. Something I forgot to talk about also is the price. This is definitely spendy. It is $1,700. Today's market, tariffs, all that crap, that's definitely affecting it and influencing the actual price. But let's be honest, that's like a laptop. So you could technically just buy a laptop with the keyboard controller and have a more powerful device that's going to do more things for you. But you're not going to have the workflow that's available to you right here, and you would also still need an audio interface and a microphone. Which, you know, you'd probably buy another microphone anyways, but you need audio interface, microphones, keyboard controller, etc., etc. So you wouldn't just be buying a computer, you'd be buying other things as well if you want to make a direct comparison. But again, the workflow on the Live 3 is going to be much more in tune with the process of making music. And that's where you're going to have to ask yourself, is that worth it to spend $1,700 or not? I don't know. I will not be able to answer that question for you. For me, there is several things in here that immediately make me go, yes, I would drop money on it. The biggest one for me is automatic audio interface built into it. So I can just plug in a USB-C cable and immediately open up Ableton Live and have access to 24 audio tracks. Now you do have to route them in here. So it's not like track 1 and here is track 1 on there. You have to actually send the outputs like so, like this, USB outputs individually up to 24 and all that. But it's already here. So I can actually send out one-to-one digital copies directly into my DAW, not worry about any kind of analog conversion or anything like that, and then take those stems and mix them myself, send them to a mix engineer, send them as beats for a project or whatever, you know, like that alone would be the price of entry for me for that convenience level. In addition to all the other stuff you get from the MPCe Pads to the step sequencer functionality, the CPU hardware being much faster, much more capable. To me, that's worth the cost of entry. But I do understand that we're now basically competing directly with the laptop in near functionality goals. You can definitely just buy a MacBook that's going to be more powerful, more full featured, more software, all that stuff. And maybe that's a better solution for you in the long run. Again, I don't know. I won't be able to tell you. If you are planning on picking up an MPC Live 3, I have affiliate links below. They directly support the channel if you do buy through them. So thank you very much if you do that. It's no additional charge for you, but it does give a little bit back to me for the content that I make. Also, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, I do appreciate it. This has been a pretty long one, and I will have more videos on the MPC Live 3. It's just a lot to cover. There's a lot of subtleties that have changed and some major things that have changed as well. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you next time for another one. Peace.